So while he's getting the slides up, we've been hearing quite a bit about the 6 gigahertz band, and I think, as everybody knows, in the U.S., we made that available a couple years ago. We enabled. There we go. So right off the bat, we enabled the full 1200 megahertz. I'll talk about that a little bit, as we've heard this morning from quite a few people. Um, but we do have low power indoor operating. We have a lot of devices that have been authorized. We have a lot of folks using it, a lot of users out there doing all kinds of things. Uh, we are working on authorizing standard power outdoor use with the databases, and we are still looking at the very low power. And I'll talk about all of that in a little bit. Just to kind of move on, one of the interesting things, we keep hearing about, and in the previous presentation, Brazil, they said they have 13,000, I think, fixed links in the band. The U.S. is a little bit different. Throughout the band, the incumbents, you can see here, we have almost 48,000 fixed links throughout the band. I'm sorry, those are call signs. Any one of those call signs may have multiple paths, multiple links. So there are over 100,000 microwave links throughout the US that we need to protect. So it's a fairly dense environment. And then there's a few fixed satellite, mostly uplink, mostly downlinks. I think I screwed that up. They're mostly uplinks and a couple of downlinks, which we do think the distance, up to the satellite is not going to be a big deal. But again, this is part of the reason why we are, relying fairly heavily on the use of the database. But also, when you talk about why the full 1200, so when you have all these incumbent links, one thing, and it's not on the slide, but one of the things you have to think about, if you were to go with an IMT allocation, you have to relocate all those users. That takes a lot of time and a lot of cost. I don't know if that factored into any of the economic analyses we heard this morning, but certainly that is a tremendous drain on resources, where we can easily allow unlicensed use, protecting all these licensed users, using the database, using the low power indoor, and taking advantage of propagation loss from structures, and end up with a very, very efficient band. So that's, one of the things to really think about here. The other thing, and again, not on my slide, but if you're thinking about a balanced approach, which I kind of talk about, the commission has made a lot of spectrum available for licensed use throughout the mid-band. There is definitely a need for unlicensed use, to look for a balance between different ways of accessing spectrum, enabling different applications, and so on and so forth. And if you're looking to expand the access for unlicensed devices, if you don't do it here, where are you going to do it? There's not a lot of, there's not a lot of spectrum left, and we keep looking for more spectrum for IMT. And even the commission we're examining is, I think Michael Calabrese showed this morning, we're looking at enabling more licensed spectrum at 12 gigahertz. We're looking at a few other bands, 13 gigahertz, and throughout that, what we're calling maybe an extended mid-band spectrum. But unlicensed 6 gigahertz coming right above the 5 gigahertz uni bands, it just makes sense in a way as the next step, because there's not a lot left. So again, just trying to look and balance all of the various competing factors to make all the different types of access available, so that folks who are out there who need to use the spectrum can get access, whether it's for home Wi-Fi type data use, or for businesses, in order to match the business model and the type of connectivity they need to the spectrum itself and the different ways of accessing. We've heard about the economic impact. And we heard a really compelling argument this morning on the study in Mexico from Sebastian. We also looked at economic impact of using the full 1200, and the tremendous amount of additional impact it does have on the U.S. economy. And the study that I have a link to on the slide actually was a global study. I just kind of pulled the numbers from the U.S. Again, we heard this, I think, in the previous presentation. most data is actually carried more data is carried over Wi-Fi than over the commercial networks. There's a lot of synergy between unlicensed networks, unlicensed device use, and the commercial networks. There's a lot of offloading of data, especially when you get into the home and into businesses and into enterprises. So again, it just makes sense to enable as big a pipe as you can to provide a seamless user experience for all of the things you want to enable. And then again, on that theme, the full 1200 megahertz does provide for future proofing as we're looking at the next Wi-Fi standard to Wi-Fi 7 and 320 megahertz wide channels. 500 megahertz only allows one channel. The 1200 megahertz allows three of those wider channels, which gives more flexibility to people to make use of that in really creative ways. So with that, I will actually just mention before talking about anything else. The U.S. There is a proposal in CTEL, for no change, or and a push to have folks adopt the full 1200. Obviously, the U.S. fully endorses that. Happy to talk to anybody here today or anytime about, again, some of what we talked about here and the benefits. But I do encourage everybody to really think about that and think about joining us in that proposal for CTEL and the next WRC coming up in the fall on the no change for many of the reasons that I've just noted. So just real quick to kind of sum up and finish up, not take all the time. Our technical rules, I think, are very similar to what anybody who's adopted so far. We do allow the up to 36 dBm outdoor. We have the low power indoor capped at 24 dBm. I'm sorry, at 30 dBm for 320 megahertz channel. So today they're mostly 27. But one of the important things to think about is, and let me, this we can pass over. So one of the things, and the second bullet here, we are talking to folks who are looking at increasing power on indoor use. And, it seemed, and we've gotten a few waiver requests, and I know this might be a little US centric as depending on where we are, but again, something to think about. If you have an indoor device and it's indoors, why not continue to take advantage of that building entry loss, that propagation loss, and allow more power for more efficient networks indoors in the home, instead of maybe having to put in a repeater. It keeps costs down and so on and so forth. Let me jump, though, to the top bullet, because this is important. The AFC approvals for the outdoor use. One thing I want to say is our previous speaker said he understood it's not going to be until next year. I certainly hope that's not the case. We are working very hard to get AFCs approved, hopefully by this summer or so. That's kind of our goal. It has been a little bit of a moving target, and I'll let Kevin talk about that when he comes up. But one of the things we have been doing, we're working very closely with the Wi-Fi Alliance and the forum on the process for approving the AFCs. And although the AFC database is relatively simple as spectrum management databases go, it's much simpler than our CBRS, even simpler than the white space database, but it's still a complex endeavor to get those tested and approved. And given the dense incumbent environment, we do want to make sure we get it right. So we've been working very closely with the Wi-Fi Alliance and Forum on the test parameters and how these will get tested. And and I think we're pretty close to getting to that point where everybody's very comfortable with that set of inputs for testing, that we can start moving forward and getting the testing going. We've already provided some guidance on the test labs for the first part of our lab testing, and then we will have some sort of a public trial testing where any interested party can access the databases, put in coordinates, and see what comes out and make sure that they're fully comfortable. And then the other thing, our further notice, we are still working on VLP. So we have not authorized that yet. We have recently gotten a lot of more technical studies, modeling efforts, Monte Carlo analyses, and so forth. And again, one of the differences probably in the U.S. is because of that very dense incumbent fixed service environment. We do want to make sure that what we authorize for very low power is going to work. So we're really hard at work in making sure we fully understand the interactions between the devices, those networks, so that as we move forward and look to authorize very low power, that we are comfortable that it's not going to cause a harmful interference situation. Um, so yeah, I don't think this just for informational purposes. It's just to illustrate there's a lot of ongoing work going on in this band on a whole bunch of stuff. One of the other interesting things I'll just mention real quickly, because some of you folks may come up against this. Once you authorize low power indoor use, one of the things that's coming up is a definitional issue. What actually is indoor? So, for example, in a stadium, if I have a stadium with a domed roof that retractable and open, when the roof's closed, obviously I'm indoors. If the roof starts opening, am I still indoors or not? Well, that's a question that comes up. So as regulators, we try to have simple rules that are easy to follow, and then all these kind of nuanced cases come up, and these are things the commission is thinking about, and and I think these rules will evolve over time. As we learn more, we understand the use cases more, and we figure out how best to enable the most efficient use of them. So with that, I'm going to cede the mic. Thank you. Apologize for the earlier technical difficulties, and look forward to questions later. Thanks.